Hi, so I am going to be sharing my ethnographic case study for sped360 spring semester 2021. Um, and this is going to be based off of my case study interview. Um, and so to begin, my interviewee that I decided to interview, and I'm not going to be using his real name, but we're going to call him Carlos. And so Carlos, he grew up in Mexico, specifically Guerrero, Mexico, and he moved to the United States for high school to get an education. And so him and his brother both lived in Mexico with their family, and their parents decided to have them move up to the United States and live with their aunt and uncle in California so that they could get that education that they needed. And so just a couple, background facts is that he is an English language learner. Um, he is a first generation immigrant to the United States from Mexico. Um, and as I interviewed him, I found that he felt that he academically was able to, do well growing up, going to those younger grades of education in Mexico. But that as he moved to the United States, it became very difficult in his classes in high school because of the language barrier and things like that. And so we're going to kind of dig deeper into that interview with him and kind of discuss the effects that these kind of themes that I found from the interview have today. And so a quote kind of from this interview, one that was important to me because I think it portrays um, Carlos and his challenges, his feelings. So he said, "It was very scary to be in a new place where I had no idea what the people were saying." Um, and so for my interview, it was done in Spanish. And so this quote obviously has been translated by myself. And so just kind of this idea that um, he had a lot of fear, I guess, in just getting that education and in the changes in his new environment. Um, and this is him and his family in Mexico. Um, and so these are some of the interview questions that I think stood out the most to me. Um, and so kind of some questions were, what was the most difficult part about immigrating to the United States? What has been the most difficult thing you've faced as you have learned English so far? What people, things, organizations, etc. helped you get through these hard times when you first moved to the United States? And so currently he's been there for about 3 years now. And so kind of having him reflect on at the beginning of when he first moved. And then, how has your English improved? How has your testimony in Christ helped you learn English? And then, lastly, what have you learned about being willing to make mistakes in order to learn a language? And so, a lot of the interview was based off of the challenges that he faced while being a new immigrant to the United States and kind of learning English and educationally how that fit into his life at that time. And so three themes that I personally got from the interview from Carlos and his experiences um, were that the kind of three most important ways or themes, kind of strategies to um, help this kind of transition in students was first strengthen communities, organize support groups, and support groups. I'll kind of talk about it later, but has a couple different kind of meetings, I guess, and then language and ELL, so English language learner mentors. And so the first one, strengthening the community, is basically kind of just talking about being an ally to immigrants in the United States. And so um, whether you know somebody, a family member, spouse, coworker, anyone, or even if you don't know an immigrant personally, that these um, Americans, these immigrants, that we need to stand with them and help them within our communities, and specifically to strengthen those communities, kind of both in ways religiously and in educational values as well. And so this is actually a picture of Carlos's aunt and uncle, these two, and their family. And so just kind of a personal picture, I guess. Um, and you'll notice that throughout the slideshow that there are some baptism pictures, and these are family members of Carlos getting baptized because he also converted to the church once he moved to the United States. And he decided to get baptized. And so just kind of seeing like progression of different generations of people in his family who um, immigrated to the United States and ended up getting baptized in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so just kind of the miracles, I guess, throughout. Um, and so going off of that, one of the organized support groups um, that I felt was most crucial to Carlos specifically was that these kind of groups or supports that are needed to provide support in social kind of outlets because a lot of immigrants seem to maybe feel alone if they don't have people that are similar to them or have similar experiences to connect with. And so for Carlos, this group in the church helped him to have that transition and kind of overcome those challenges. And so whether that was, weekly activities for the youth, mutual activities in his age group, or finding it in adult leaders in church, and also just kind of having that family aspect, I guess, of an entire ward, an entire group of people with similar beliefs and values that also had the same experiences, who also speak the first same language and are also learning English at the same time as him. And so going off of that, kind of digging deeper, that another main and crucial aspect of these transitions um, is to have, language or English language learning mentors. So people specifically in Carlos's life, in the life of these students that help them learn the language and become more comfortable making mistakes and in trying their best to learn the language. And basically, for Carlos specifically, um, the ward had an English class once a week where it was free for anyone who wanted to learn English. And so it was an entire class full of adults, teenagers, youth, anything like that, that had a desire to learn English in order to enhance their skills or to get a better job or whatever need be. Um, and so kind of having those mentors in class and people that are going through this exact same situation, learning a difficult language and learning how to use English to make better decisions and to become successful in the United States. Um, and so, yeah, I guess I served as a missionary in this ward for um, almost a third of my, like about a third of my mission or more, in California, um, where Carlos lived at the time, and currently resides with his aunt and uncle and is still continuing his education there. Um, and so I was able to meet him through one of those English classes and I don't know, just kind of be friends with him and help each other learn new languages. And so I felt like we were kind of mentors to each other personally. And so, kind of the overall culture of this group that Carlos, he belongs to and grew up in is just kind of this Hispanic culture, this Latin culture, um, based specifically in Guerrero, Mexico, where he grew up, and in California, specifically in Bakersfield, where he currently resides. Majority of the population is from Mexico, and are immigrants from Mexico to the United States, which I believe helps a lot in his situation. And so, kind of for family life, Carlos's parents, they did not receive a formal high level education, um, did not get that opportunity, and so his parents kind of helped him and his brother um, by having them move to the United States to gain that education because they knew that the opportunities would help them and increase their success and their achievement. Um, and so kind of this culture that they grew up in, specifically in Guerrero, it is a very high crime, high, violence kind of community, the state. And so growing up in that kind of culture obviously affects, students and their abilities. And so just having that chance, that opportunity, that blessing to gain a higher education is something that he will be grateful for, and I'm sure his parents will be as well. And within this kind of culture, the heritage of this Mexican tradition, um, it is centered on two things, at least from my experience that I've noticed and from research and from my interview with Carlos. I found that family and I believe in God are both crucial to their heritage. And so with both of these things in mind, basically these challenges that they face are going to be very difficult, especially when moving away from family to get an education. But in kind of finding a new way, a new family, and creating those different traditions that are still similar to the ones that they grew up in. And then some kind of culture aspects in terms of academics. A lot of my study kind of and research came from an experiment, kind of a study done by Pew Research, and they basically studied adults that are second generation immigrants to the U.S. And the kind of specific ones here that we have a quote for is for those from Mexico, and just kind of seeing how these immigrants are able to increase their college degrees, increase their income, their home ownership, and lessen their poverty probabilities and their chances of finishing high school. And so just kind of with that in mind, seeing the miracles and the opportunity that the education, the higher level education really brings to these young students who may have grown up in impoverished environments and times where they are learning English, that those things will be worth it, even though difficult. And so kind of some cross-cultural connections, I guess, some strategies as we kind of look over that, the concept of equity in education can be done by kind of this learning model that is found in kind of, ways to teach English to diverse groups of students and teach it with life skills. And so that includes connecting with learners, connecting with the language, and connecting with learning. And so just connecting all three of these aspects for those students so that they can succeed and do so with effort. And so kind of our role as teachers is to find ways to do this and to put in the work to learn how to do that, especially for those students or if we're teaching in impoverished communities or communities where there are a good amount of diverse populations. And so doing those three things is a way to, help those students receive the most out of their education for their families and for generations to come. And so just kind of some connections that I made through here. It's just kind of the things that I learned that we can do as future teachers for our students to empower them to use technology and to kind of promote multicultural perspectives. And so I won't go over all of my answers to that, but just kind of knowing that there are strategies and ways that can be done. And then just some kind of applications and recommendations for how to actually put this into practice as teachers based off of my research and based off of the interview with Carlos that I had and kind of the insights that I gained from that experience. And so just kind of finding ways to help those students specifically who are immigrants, grew up in poverty, and are learning English. And then lastly, these are my references. And so, I don't know, just thank you for listening.